everyone to this talk. And it's my first big talk. And a couple of my colleagues gave me tips on this. And they told me to imagine the entire crowd half naked.
Yes.
But it's super difficult for me because it's winter and everybody is clothed in multiple layers. So it's difficult, and it's not good advice. OK, so the talk is about timesheets. So why do we need to talk about timesheets? Everybody, I think, in their career has at some point faced with timesheets, and I'm pretty sure it's not a great experience. And I'm just trying to share my point of view from it, and also I'm trying to bring in the perspective of the business as well, because I know we are UX designers, but we also have to take into consideration what the business thinks of timesheets as well, because it's super important for them. OK, so this is just an overview of what I want to talk about. So why do we need to talk about timesheeting? And before we move any further, maybe it's a good thing to look at the history of timesheeting. And after that, why timesheeting is done in a specific way and what is the drawbacks of it from a psychological point of view or cognitive point of view. And the last one is how can we make this experience a little bit better? So that's where I put in some of the crazy ideas, some from me, some from the team as well. So let's see if you like it. OK. Yeah, so why do we need to talk about timesheeting? It's because I see bad UX everywhere. And I don't know if you've seen this movie. It's a great one. That's where the kid actually sees dead people. So that's how I see bad UX everywhere. And as UX designers, as the other speaker just said, we see bad UX everywhere, in doors, in homes, in cars, everywhere. So maybe it's a good thing that we need to start looking at the way timesheeting has been done so far. As UX designers, normally we are always asked to build happy experiences. No client ever comes to us and says, OK, you need to build something that's half decent. And maybe when the person is using it, he's going to feel the pain. No, nobody says that. So we're always trying to create happy experiences. And we also have to look at the tools that we use to create these happy experiences. And timesheeting, or rather the timesheet softwares, are a classic example of this. They never give us the same experience we are trying to design. So that's something we need to keep in mind. I mean, the tools kind of build the way we work. It's part of our workflow. If that kind of messes up the whole experience, then the UX designer is bound to give a shitty timesheeting tool in the end, because he's also timesheeting with a bad software. What does the business think about it? So you're telling me that you hate timesheets, but you want to get paid. That's a tricky question, because from business point of view, it's the single most crucial tool for business. And why is that? Because if you imagine all the softwares that you use on a daily basis as a business, timesheeting is the most important one. Because imagine if you lost all the timesheeting data one morning, you cannot run your business. If Adobe XD stops working or your Outlook stops working, you can still maybe call someone on the phone or try to get them through other means. But if timesheeting stops, it's impossible to run the business, because that's how we get paid as people. Yeah, it's maybe a nice idea to think where all of this started. And when I started researching, it was super interesting to know it was not in this century. It was long ago. This was from the first dynasty of the Babylons, and Hammurabi was the king of the dynasty. And he was a kind of a dictator, as all kings are. And what he said is, OK, I'm going to make everything consistent. And everything is going to be in a rule book. And this is the code of Hammurabi. And in this, he guaranteed a wage of 8 gur of corn per year. I don't know what the gur thing is. Maybe it's a sack. I don't know. So that's what he guaranteed as a wage to every person who was working there. And for someone to pay him, the supervisor actually had to track the time. So that's where time tracking probably started. This is maybe a couple of centuries, maybe 4 centuries ago, almost. For millennia, sorry, yeah. And moving a little further in time, we come here. So this is on the onset of Industrial Revolution. So in the late 18th century, that's when Industrial Revolution took off in Europe, and that's when the real need for timesheeting started, because then all the companies had to deal with mass people entering the workforce, and it was super difficult for them to understand the productivity of these people. And if somebody was slacking off, when did they come in? When did they leave the office? So what they did was they came to all the people who were inventors and said, hey, we need something that's going to track time. And it needs to track on an individual basis on each person who enters the factory and leaves the factory, because that's the most important thing that was at the time. And a person called Villiard Legrand-Bondy built this machine. It's the second version of it. It's actually called the Bundy clock. And what it used to do was punch cards. So the user would come in, the laborer, whoever, the worker would come in. He picked up a card from there, and he would insert it into the machine. And depending on the clock time, it would punch in the time on the card, and he had to insert it back. So there was a record of when he came in and when he went out. So that's basically punching in and punching out for us now. That's how it translated. And what he did was he didn't want to risk his money, so he basically invented it and sold the patents to another company. And this company was International Time Recording Company, ITRC, which started mass producing it. It became super popular with all the factories because they could accurately track time of each and every laborer. And after that, what happened is this company became so popular, they merged with other smaller companies who were doing similar computing at that time. It's earlier computing, you could say. And that turned into International Business Machines. So IBM as we know it now. And this is just how the logo has transformed over the years. That's when the Bundy clock came in. And this is how we see it today. So if you want to blame timesheeting, you need to blame IBM. So that's the company who made it super famous, by the way. Okay, so now moving on a little bit into the psychology of it, because timesheet really goes into the practice of the perception of time. Because if you're working on a specific task in a day, what you really need to do is work on the task, but also monitor the amount of time you're consuming to do that specific task. So that's basically depending on the perception of time of that individual. And there's something super important about it. As a great man once said, time is relative, but your timesheet is a constant. And that doesn't just apply to astrophysics and the bigger scheme of things, but that's also true when it comes to human perception of time. So something we all need to know is our brain doesn't record duration objectively. So each person experiences time in a completely different way. And this is also proven by research that depending on the different events that's happening around you at that point, and also if it's unusual or remarkable or something new, your perception of time changes. So if you're doing something mundane and nothing new happens, then your perception of time is very different. Like when you're waiting for a bus in a bus station, or if you're playing a game, the perception of time completely changes. And what are we doing is we are basing the entire practice of timesheeting on this specific perception. It's actually a perception. It's completely subjective. Not everybody looks at time the same way as maybe the other person does. So that's subjective, and we need to be aware of it. And the other thing that timesheeting really counts on is the accuracy, because it's based on manual input. So because it's based on manual input, it's again based on the frequency at which you start timesheeting. If somebody's timesheeting it daily, it differs. If somebody's timesheeting at the end of the month, it's completely different. So the accuracy of all of this depends on that specific thing. But also another thing to keep in mind is the accuracy also depends on how conscious or how aware you are of what you're doing. Because if you're super concentrated on a specific task, then it's hard for you to be conscious of the perception of time, basically. How much time are you taking? And this always on mindset is not what humans are wired to do, because we can only concentrate on one. Multitasking has been proven to be a myth. Not many people can do it, maybe a couple of tasks at a time. But if you're concentrating on a task and also trying to understand how much time you're spending on it, you can be certain that it's not accurate. So this is a study, or rather a survey, which was done by Harvard Business Review. And here you can see how the accuracy of the data from the timesheets keeps changing depending on the frequency. So if the user is doing the timesheeting multiple times, that's when the data is super accurate. But if you do it less than once a week, then you can see basically everything that you're putting in is this. So you're saying, yeah, it took me 5 minutes to do something, but probably, yeah, it's just your guesswork. It's probably not accurate. And there's very little accuracy there. It's maybe 10, 20% only. So only if we can increase the frequency and the way we are doing the timesheeting, only then we can get accurate data. And this is super important because this study also showed that companies are actually losing $50 billion a year because of inaccurate data coming in. So that's the same amount of money that probably could have been used on UX research, which normally we don't have an opportunity always to do. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. And the other part of it, so it's the anxiety behind timesheeting. It is a real thing because you might be able to complete timesheets on time 1 week. Maybe you won't be able to do it every time. And this actually puts a lot of pressure on you. And to understand how this anxiety gets built up, I just want to do what most UX designers always do, is go on a user journey of how the person completes his timesheets. So that's me taking off to do my timesheets on a Monday morning. So it begins the quest to complete the timesheets. And how does it start? It always starts with a reminder, because I've just had a super lazy weekend. I'm sleepy. I've forgotten what I did last week. And on a Monday morning, here, the HR or the tool itself sends out an email. It's like, hey, I think you forgot a timesheet. This is your 20th time in this year. Are you sure you're still forgetting, or you're just running away from the task? That is what most people are actually doing. So this is where it starts. So you already are anxious that you haven't completed it. And the next part is now you have to recollect on everything that you did last week. And if you're somebody like me who normally works on multiple projects in a week, then you know that it's super difficult to trace. So how do you start retracing? So you start looking at your emails, you start looking at your calendar, you start looking at every record there is to understand what are the things that I worked on last week. And this whole process is as useful as an ashtray on a motorcycle. It never is helpful. It's just blowing in your face. It's not going to be helpful at all. And this is where, this is where time sheeting stops and time cheating starts. So because you know you don't have the accurate information, so you just start estimating stuff. And moreover, it's never easy to do, even if you can cheat, because the tools are asking for more information, like put in comments. What did you work on? What was the exact call you had? Who did you speak with? So that can always be even more stressful for you to find information on. And finally, somehow you manage to complete stuff in your timesheets. Then you're super happy. Hey, good job, we finished the timesheet. But yeah, this is where it's not done, actually. So this is the beginning of what's going to happen for the next week. And also, after you complete it, your mind doesn't stop thinking about it. What happens? Okay, will someone notice what I put in there? Will I be seen as productive? Am I as productive as the other person sitting next to me? Am I the same as the other person? Did I miss something? Oh, maybe I missed something, so then now they're not going to bill the client. So maybe that's that's going to... Yeah, maybe the client will not be billed. So that's something is always there. So you start self-doubting. So here is the whole cycle of anxiety. And now I want to talk about how we can probably try and improve this experience, because now we just went through the process. That's something that we go through almost every week. And it's not an enjoyable thing, because this is a cycle that keeps repeating every now and then. And it's not a good experience, because we're always trying to build good experiences, and we ourselves are going through super bad experience every week. How can we improve it? Maybe we can try and remove a little bit of stress around timesheeting. Because, yeah, you cannot find your data, there's always an email coming for you, and you're working on other important tasks, and it's always hard for you to get that data. Timesheeting can be transformed into something that is more fun, and maybe that should be something you look forward to at the end of the day, because as you saw, the studies say that the more frequently you put in the data, the more accurate it is. So it should be something that you do every day at the end of your day, and it needs to be fun for you to do that. Timesheeting can also be made a bit more personal, so depending on what you're trying to do, maybe your profile, we can change the way the interface looks to you or the way we collect information from you. Last but not least, we can try and gamify this experience, because we are trying to gamify everything. Why not do this? Maybe that's gonna help. So before we think of nice ideas, we have to think outside the box. But when I talk about boxes here, I'm talking about tables, basically, because those are completely filled with boxes. And every single timesheeting tool that I've seen so far, bar a couple of them that I recently found out while I was doing the research for this, they all have the same interface. It's a table, you go in there, it's an Excel sheet. It's basically something that's a remnant from the Bondi clock, where it was basically a big sheet which was printed on, and then you would insert it. I think we're still doing stuff the same way as we did maybe a couple of centuries ago. And here are some super simple but still crazy ideas. What if timesheeting was no longer an interface of tables? What if we did it as a chatbot? Could it be conversational? Could we make it super fun? Maybe it's something approachable. Maybe you just type something in and say, hey, I worked on 2 hours on a new app, and it will capture it. Or maybe there's AI behind it, and what it does is it already suggests, looking at the activity on your computer, the apps that you used, and maybe the emails. I know it's GDPR, maybe you don't want to give access to all that stuff, but maybe if you did, they already have access anyway. So it will already suggest 20 hours on a new app, or maybe an email design that you did. And all you have to do is say, yeah, it looks right, and no, let me manage it. And I'm pretty sure the accuracy is going to be similar to what you would do at the end of the week, or maybe even more. Because, yeah, this is at least based on accurate information of your behavior rather than just guesswork. That's maybe one of the ideas. What if we took it a little more further? What if it's not just collecting information, but also suggesting something for you? So once you're done with your timesheeting, it might say, hey, maybe there's a movie that you would like to watch at the end of the day. And this way, every day you finish your timesheets, there is like a small reward waiting for you, saying, yeah, maybe you can play a game or a movie, which is new on Netflix. Or it could also be gamified a little bit. Say, yeah, you completed timesheets 7 days without missing it, or maybe 7 weeks, and then the company can reward you, or maybe the software gives you a reward in terms of coupons or whatever that is. That's maybe one idea we can think of. And here is a crazy idea we had early in the morning. What if the interface is no longer a chatbot or a regular web interface? What if it's a game? What if inside the game you are the small forklift there, and you're picking the hours from there and stacking them here in the projects? And this is completely based off of the data that you have. So if you work 3 hours, you pick up 1 hour there or half hour there and drop it here. Maybe that's a new way that we can try and achieve this. But the main thing to understand is that timesheets need to be completely replaced, because every single timesheeting tool that I found while researching, I know there are some of them which is like memory, I think. They're trying to change the way we do timesheets, but it's always one solution. Maybe there are multiple solutions that we can encompass together as a software, but that's something that maybe we all can help, because this is an experience that's really important to us, because it's important to business as well as us, and we do it every week. And this is something maybe UX designers can redefine. And by saying that, I'm going to end my speech. I hope you liked it. This was my first speech. If you have any questions, please shoot. If you have other ideas, please meet me. We can have a beer and speak about it. Thank you.
It's on? All right. First of all, thank you very much for speaking. I found it really interesting. I also think that it ties into a larger conversation of we still see time as the main KPI instead of quality, but that's an entirely different discussion to be had. But yeah, maybe it's not the timesheeting that's the problem. Maybe it's the fact that time is the main KPI
didn't want to go there
for
because
business. But I get it. So let's try the Q&A slightly differently. Let's pass the mic. No, I'm just testing out here. We're rapid prototyping this, people. I already saw a question. Yeah.
It was mainly the same idea as you had, Bavo. Why is our business still based on time? Because it's the output that should be rewarded. Because maybe Bavo is doing something 3 times as fast as I do, so he will be paid only a third of what I will be paid. So
Yeah.
it encouraged people to be slow instead of having brilliant outputs. So
I completely agree with you. That's also maybe something that I wanted to add, but I didn't know how it would be interpreted between people. Because what timesheeting essentially is doing is selling time. But if you really look at it, companies are trying to not lose money, because that's the only way you can make sure that you don't lose money. Any other way, there's high risk involved. Because if you say, I'm going to charge you 20,000 euros for a logo, and if it takes you longer, or if you bring in a consultant who charges maybe 10,000 for a week or something like that, then you have higher risk of losing money. But that is a whole different conversation about the business model and how we market stuff. But I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah. It's a larger discussion to be had.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Who wants the microphone next? Any question? I'm gonna check if we have some online questions maybe.
I think most people were expecting me to bash all the timesheeting tool, but I'm trying to be a bit more subtle. Because I'm known for ranting in my company, so I didn't want to be the ranter on YouTube and on UX Beers. Oh, this guy again is going to rant about
And I'm
something.
uploading it immediately viral.
I think I should say something. So, thank you, Aravind, for your talk. I'm very happy he actually is doing a talk, because that's the whole reason why Emakina is here, because we wanted to push him to be out of his comfort zone. And that's not ranting, so that's what he did, so great. I will say what I said to you before. It's offensive you use Calibri or Comic Sans font in this talk. That aside.
Function over form, Eva.
No. That aside, so time is the way we are measured now. But how you measure quality, that's so subjective. If you give that, then you totally can change the way we can charge to our clients. So how you measure quality is, I think, maybe the other question to put on the table. Because for them, it's like, okay, you don't want to be measured by time, give me something. Because, especially for us, we are open how we do it differently. And I think quality should be the key, the key KPI. But how do you do that?
But quality is also subjective.
That's your homework.
Huh? What?
That's your homework.
Yeah, but as you said, quality is also subjective, depending on the client that you're working on and the designer who's working. Maybe they click, maybe that's something that they like. But I don't think there's a one solution to say this is quality. Because this is not like architecture. We cannot measure quality by saying, this specific room can withhold maybe 50 people, or this is the way people can exit out in terms of fire exit, emergency. So quality is really subjective, and it's hard. It's a complete discussion on its own, I guess.
Yeah, I'm curious to who cracks that nut first. I know a lot of people are moving in that direction, but it's making it quantifiable is the hard one.
Yeah.
Time is so easily quantifiable. Quality isn't. Was that another question? Anyone else? Yeah, wait. I'm coming with the microphone. This works. I think it works.
Okay. So my question is, since I established like timesheets in our company as well, like in our CRM, and it's cost, like calculating the cost as well per project, and that's what's really like for us like eye opener to see like which customer is like very difficult, and they're maybe bringing many projects for us, but they're asking so much correction after like one after the other. So we discover like, oh, this one a difficult customer. And whenever we work with them, like profit was going down, even if they're bringing many projects. But then by having these timesheets, it's really like easy to identify who are the golden customers in our system, of course, because people are now like seeing why we are filling out timesheet, and each employee saw the value of that. So maybe in other companies, I don't know, each employee doesn't understand the value of the timesheet maybe because they think like it's all daily tasks that we have to fill it out, and they think it's a bit like a tedious thing to do, or I don't know what's your thought about it?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Yeah, as I said, the whole concept of timesheeting is not to lose money. But as you said, maybe there are companies and clients where, because you're doing frequent business with them, the prices are lesser, maybe the hourly rates are lesser, but in the long run you keep losing money. But yeah, I'm not management, so I don't think I can answer that question really well. I have some research to do as well.
So we have a comment from Annie Stewart herself on the YouTube saying that she once looked into this, and agencies used to get a share of the revenue generated from whatever work they did. We're talking 50s, 60s, Mad Men kind of days. But then companies started squeezing profit margins even more, and so they switched all these agencies to time and material, which ended us in the situation we are right now. So thank you for that. What else do we have? Timesheets are useless when you work agile with a dedicated team doing sprints, but clients are reluctant to really adopt that model.
That is from a product company point of view.
Yeah, yeah, that's from an agency is even, yeah, that's even harder. And then Javier says, there is one main reason why companies measure employees in terms of working hours. This is called trust, which is bit of a jab, I guess.
Sarcastic, yeah.
Yeah. Can be perceived that way. With that, I'm gonna end this event. Well, end this event, we can stick around. I do have, however, exclusive. You only receive these when you give a talk, and that is a badge. Shura, I have one for you as well. So if you want one of these, you are gonna have to talk on a UX Biz event. These are highly exclusive. Thank you so much for speaking. And with that, I'm rounding off the live stream. People online will keep the live stream running for a bit longer so you can still chat with each other. Everyone here, thank you so much for coming. Please stick around, have another beer, have another drink, have one of these delicious snacks that we have. Our next event is November. And thank you very much for this event, and we'll see you all next month.